Well, g'day there traders, friends and students right around the world. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon market recap. What I'll do, I'll go through the top 3 US indices on the left-hand side over here, followed by our top 13 individual trade lists this afternoon. I'll also include ticker symbol PCL, and that is price line. There was a fantastic trade set up on that to the downside. It appears to be at least bouncing off from that support, which I'll address and still give you an up-to-date trade set up on that particular stock. So what I'll do to begin with is have a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Today, an interesting daily candlestick which has formed. We have what we call a perfect doji candlestick. It is a perfect textbook doji candlestick. Generally what happens is when we start off or set off in a bullish trend, when we see that doji and see it so far away from that 10, that 20, and that 50 exponential moving average, it generally means, or it generally ushers in, a very short-term retracement back into these key levels of support. So I wanted to say, first of all, on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it is continuing to move higher. You can see on Monday's trading session, we did pop just slightly higher. But today, Tuesday, at the end of Tuesday's trading close, you can see that doji show up at that perfect signal location. This is the first candlestick which we would expect to see. Wouldn't be surprised whatsoever to see this market slow down up around these levels, to retrace, to have a breather, to rest, consolidate before we get the next real plausible or buyable purchasing opportunity to start entering into this new bullish trend, which appears to be starting to kick off on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The S&P also hit our target today, 2038. It is a target which we have had set since July 2014. Today we did hit this target, which is quite interesting. This is what we call a fib extension based off some ranges going back to really 2014. We've projected some fib extensions into the future. We found some confluence levels. 2038 was that target. As at Tuesday, we only bounced 1.5 points today, but we did hit that target. So that's quite interesting on the S&P as well. And the NASDAQ, it looks as if we're starting to set up or continue to set up that stair-step pattern. I think, or at least today, based on today's candlestick, let me just move this trigger over to the right. You can see that there is still sustained buying pressure on the NASDAQ. It is the most settled of the three based on where those exponentials are showing up. You can see just how far or how close price is to that 10 compared to that Dow Jones Industrial Average where I went through over the weekend. I did a quick exercise for you, just showing you the distance between those two key levels of price data. Very interesting signals taking place on the NASDAQ. If I had to pick of the three markets, which one looks to be at least set up to start trending or continuing the bullish trend, something with low risk entries, it definitely would be the NASDAQ. It's not enough for me to start entering into at least core positions or arbitrary momentum triggers on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, especially after Tuesday's candlestick being that a perfect doji candlestick. What is interesting to note is that Apple is still setting up a very, very similar pattern. You can see that rectangular pattern setting up. It still hasn't broken above 110.78. I'm still sitting on the sidelines waiting for that particular trade to, of course, confirm. Amazon today had a pretty decent pop up, about 2.5%, $6.90, very close to that 313 target or entry to get into core positions. At the moment, we've rallied right into that 50 exponential moving average. So if I was to trade Amazon, I'd keep it on the sidelines. I need to see at least another 1 or 2 days price action before I start moving this conditional order into my actual trading account. At the moment, there's a lot of risk buying at these levels based on what the markets are doing. It is a decent trade setup starting to formulate, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Amazon at least slow down for a couple of days before we see that breakout, which we've been waiting above 313.64 or below $291.99. Baidu today continuing in the breakout. Congratulations if you took this trade. 246.58 was the bullish side. It actually popped on Monday. You can see the volume coming back into Baidu. Again, a stair-step pattern. You see how these patterns break during a bullish trend. What happens is that the stocks and markets, for that matter, need time to rest. That is what has occurred. That's why I'm so excited about the NASDAQ. It seems to be doing the same type of pattern before we start seeing buying volume come off that 10 exponential moving average. Decent volume over the past 2 days. As a matter of fact, so if you are in this trade, set your stop below the low of Tuesday's candlestick and let Baidu ride for a couple of days. It looks like a very, very decent trade setup. No particular trade on Caterpillar. 104.10 is the bullish trade. 97.81 is the bearish side of that trade. I'm not going to go into detail. Disney today, no real net movement. You can see it's moving sideways, trying to fill that gap resistance. It hasn't done that whatsoever. You can see again a pretty perfect dragonfly candlestick on the Tuesday. No real net movement to talk about. Again, you can interpret this pattern or this candlestick pattern one of two ways. It's not giving us enough signal anyway to move our triggers below 88.54 or above 92.52 or change what is existing in that particular trade. Netflix today, a little bit of an inside day candlestick. Nothing really to talk about there. Facebook still stuck in this sideways trading range. We're still really battling with this primary trend and also this gap. So you can see how we haven't hit our 77 trade trigger or the 71.82 or the $70.23 trade. It's still just in no man's land, just giving it a little bit of time to shake out. We will see a directional movement take place in Facebook. Google today starting to bounce up $3.06. I'm still very, very happy with this 548.56 bearish entry. You can see we're still struggling to get back above that 50 exponential moving average. We're moving back into that macro resistance at once. Acted as support, but right now we're sort of testing this level. If this fails, watch 548.56. The bottom on Google is absolutely going to fall out. Halliburton is still really consolidating, moving sideways. You can see these Bollinger Bands really starting to constrict price. This is very similar to the next trade, which I'm going to walk into, or the next couple of trades, Netflix and Tesla. Tesla today actually popped and triggered, which is really good. Netflix is still setting up really the perfect trade for us moving forward. Hal is getting there. It's not there yet, but you can certainly see the volatility since mid-October 2014 really starting to constrict the current price. This is very, very exciting. I'm still going to keep the 56.93 and also the 47.24. Just sit tight on this particular trade. Start setting these trades in your own trading account. It looks like a fantastic trade to jump on board. Just give it a couple of more days and it will get even tighter. Volatility will come rushing back in, either bullish or bearish. It doesn't matter whatsoever, as long as, of course, we see follow through in the overall price. What is interesting today on Netflix, we saw a shooting star candlestick. So very close to that 396.50 trade trigger. You can see these Bollinger Bands really, quickly, I should say, really constricting price. They have come a long way in the past 5 days. 5 days ago, they were up here about $480, also down here about $330. You can see right now we're getting very, very close to a full-on Bollinger Band squeeze on Netflix. If you want to go back and see historically what Netflix does during a Bollinger Band squeeze, go back to the periods around 2011, 2012 when we were basing around $50 a share or $40 a share, however low Netflix did get back in those past years. This is going to be an absolutely incredible trade setup. Please do not miss it. You can see my targets right there. Starbucks today, another high wave spinning top right on that entry trigger at 77.81. A lot of indecision in Starbucks. Still a decent trade up to about $79.67. Let me just bring this target down. You can see it right here. Pretty interesting trade setup, but not a whole lot to talk about today. This could be the start of what we call a stair step as well, breaking to the upside, needing time to rest and consolidate. We'll soon see. Tesla Motors today gave us that pop. You can see the beginning of a Bollinger Band squeeze. It wasn't a full-on blown Bollinger Band squeeze. We really like to see these bands really constrict price a lot more, much like over here in July and August 2014. You can see that quick breakout and the result to the upside. You can see right now we're up about $3 of intrinsic value on these core positions. Not a whole lot, but a decent little pop at least to the bullish side. You can see the volume coming back in on Tesla. This is a stock which we did catch a couple of weeks ago to the downside. Since then, we've been very neutral, at least expecting that rollover back to support. Earnings has come out. It's sort of been a nothing really earnings statement. No real gap, either higher or lower. But the trade setup was still there at 248.28. So I wanted to say congratulations on that trade. It's up over $3 at the moment, but again, it's got a long way to go. At least the gap fill around 257.20, a very decent trade. If that occurs, that's another $6 of intrinsic value to the upside. That'll really round it out close to $10 move on those options, which will translate to about $7 in the option price increasing if we hit our target up here at 257.20. Twtr today also hit our target. You can see here 39.35. This trade took about a week to play out. Decent trade. It gapped down today, which was interesting. It really finished the day with a zero net movement. You can see in the top right hand corner of my screen anyway that there was no net movement, but hey, we hit our target at 39.35. Another profitable trade on Twtr, ladies and gentlemen. So congratulations on placing that individual trade setup. Moving forward, at least the stocks which I'm most excited about, definitely in Nflx, definitely Tesla to the upside. Baidu looks to be breaking out, which is very, very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to Caterpillar. If in fact we get the rollover below 97.81, this is really the perfect trade setup. If you had to really sort of define a perfect trade setup, this is it right here to the downside. This is really a really gimme trade. You can see we've broken this very strong macro support. We've rallied off from the lows. We're retesting this old support. This is the perfect location to see a failure in Caterpillar to the downside. Will it materialize? Who knows? But definitely 97.81 on the downside. What else am I excited about? Facebook, again, if we start breaking that primary trend, looks to be a fantastic trade. If we continue in the bullish trend, it's also going to reward us as technical traders. We're just waiting, of course, for the price to pop. Apple, again, I've gone over these trade triggers above that 110.78 star step, rectangular stair step pattern setting up. I've got a few stocks also, which I alluded to. Priceline is one of those. We had this 1077 trade trigger on, of course, confirmation that price breaks down below this. This didn't occur, so that's good. Had a few students emailing and saying, look, price line's moving in the opposite direction to the bearish trend. That is not actually right, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been around pivot point for long enough, we trade based on confirmations. It's okay to have a hypothesis or an understanding based on technical analysis of where a stock should go. You never want to enter into a stock unless you get, of course, that price confirmation. It's going to keep you out of a lot of negative trades or a lot of losing trades, and it's really going to keep you, of course, to those trades which you really want to be in at the end of the day. That 1077 trade trigger looks to be breaking down in the way that it's starting to at least fill this gap support or gap resistance up here around 1178 at the moment. Again, you can see we've got the 50, we've got the 2 simple moving averages, we've got this open gap. Not a good trade on price line, or what I should say is that a very risky trade to the upside if you took it on price line. It is outside our top 13 individual trade list, but it is something which I gave an update on our YouTube page last week or midweek last week. I've had a few other stocks suggested to me, one of which is GoPro. A lot of students emailing in about GoPro. I've had about 6 or 7 email in on this one particular stock saying, look, is this a decent trade to the downside based on this gap? The answer is yes, it really is. Not very good volume today, but you can see the basic trade setup which students are starting to email me in. They're saying, look, if we start moving below 74.89, is a good trade down to 69.97. Is that a decent trade setup? And the answer, my friends, is yes, it is. You can see in the past, what's actually trying to occur anyway is that we're really failing this earnings gap. Really failing it. You can see we had a nice bullish pop a couple of weeks ago, but since then we've had a very strong move to the downside. A few spinning tops. Of the last 4 trading sessions, we've had 3 spinning tops and also pretty much a gravestone doji, perfect gravestone doji, really indicating that at least the selling pressure wants to come back in. We don't have enough technical analysis in the way of indicators. You can see the 10 and 20 exponential moving averages. There's really only enough price data in the last probably 2 months to start working with at least the 10 and the 20 exponential moving average. We can sort of work with at least the Stokes and the RSI, very neutral at the moment. The MACD, there's not enough data to give it that signal line yet. So that's very interesting. Pretty decent trade setup. What I think is going to occur on GoPro is that we're simply going to move sideways. These Bollinger Bands are going to constrict price, and maybe in about a week or 2, we're going to get a very decent Bollinger Band squeeze, something which is going to usher in a lot of volatility and a lot of price movement to the upside, most likely. That is looking more throughout the start of December 2014. Yes, there is a viable trade setup to the downside. 69.97 would be my trade target, so that's about $5 or $4 down to that target. Decent trade, and with the markets looking so extended again to the upside, it's only a matter of time until you start seeing a bit of selling pressure come into these markets, which is going to weigh of course, on the price of a lot of these top 13 individual trades, which I cover here at Pivot Point Trading. So that's a pretty decent Tuesday afternoon market recap. Whoops, I just pushed the volume button. If you have any questions, email me success@pivotpoint-trading.com. Schedule a phone call with me, and I'll be happy, of course, to work with you and answer any questions which you have regarding trading or what we do here at Pivot Point Trading. So all the best, ladies and gentlemen, around the world. Thanks a lot for watching this market update. I'll see you all Wednesday for another market update. Be careful. All the best. Goodbye.